The Cardinals already making a big splash, signing J.J. Watt. Bob, your first reaction to this, how does this help the team?
Wow. How could it not? You're bringing in arguably the greatest defensive player over the last 10 years in the NFL. A certain Hall of Famer, a guy with a ton of energy, leadership. Everybody loves this guy. He's the captain when you talk about captain. This is like bringing Mark Messier in his prime to the Coyotes, although J.J. Watt's not in his prime. But he's done so much in 10 years. Just his mere presence alone, I've been telling people who ask, his mere presence alone, not even being on the field, which is huge, his mere presence alone brings credibility. It's going to make kids follow. It's going to make veterans get out of bad habits. And he's going to hold everybody accountable. It's like having two Larry Fitzgeralds on your team on both sides of the ball. It's a great move.
Katherine, your reaction to this and how does this help the Cardinals moving forward, especially on the defensive side?
Yeah, just a huge splash in the offseason again, 2 years in a row for this team. Coincidentally, 2 years in a row, bringing in someone from the Texans. So I guess this is their new tradition, but this helps the defense immediately. To pair him with Chandler Jones, I think is just going to be fascinating. When you look at what both of these guys have done since 2012, when Jones entered the league, they lead the league in total sacks, nearly 100 each. So, Cardinals players were tweeting out after the news of who are you going to double now? And I think that's a pretty big question for opposing coaches of figuring out what to do against this Cardinals defense, on top of everything Bob mentioned with the leadership, the humanitarian efforts off the field that, just make J.J. Watt such a strong addition to any locker room.
And Bob, moving forward now for this offseason for, the Cardinals, I mean, this is, quite, as Katherine said, the splash, coming in.
Yeah.
What do you expect, as we continue this offseason?
I think this was not just a splash, but a tip of a giant iceberg, because there's a lot of moves now that are going to trickle down after this. He was the big splash, yes, but now you've got things you've got to think about in terms of, does this help Patrick Peterson maybe come to an agreement with the Cardinals? In my opinion, he's still the best cornerback they have on the roster, and they probably ought to bring him back. As much as he might want to test the market, I think he double checks, first of all, and comes to an agreement with the Cardinals rather quickly. Now, I think he'd love to play with J.J. Watt. Larry Fitzgerald. Now, okay, you've done that. Now we know where our money's going. Now we can go, after we get Pat and maybe a couple other things done, we know we've got this much for Larry. I think the fact that Larry hasn't announced his retirement, it only bodes well for a return for an 18th season. Then you go trickle down even more to Hassan Reddick and Marcus Golden. You need either one of those guys with J.J. Watt. I think you need one of them. But it might not be Hassan Reddick who's going to want to test the money market. I don't think he's going to find what he wants out there. They're not going to franchise tag him for $16 million. Maybe you bring Marcus Golden back at a far cheaper rate than you can get Hassan Reddick. And there's other things that are going to happen, including what do they do now in the draft. So a lot of moving parts. He was the iceberg breaker, though.
And Katherine, I mean, that's got to be really good news for the rest of these, players in the locker room that are thinking about, Cardinals 2021. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I think it puts the Cardinals a bit more in control now that, kind of what Bob was saying, they can go about all these other moves after figuring out J.J. Watt. And I think it also shows again that more guys are coming to Arizona, are interested in Arizona. Not a bad place to spend your off season. I totally get that. But I think they've done a good job the last few seasons of looking for more veteran guys. But I think J.J. Watt is, so much further along than anyone else they've brought in recent years that it bodes well for the future too, of just continuing that.
And speaking of the future, let's talk about predictions here. I mean, number of sacks that we can expect. Katherine, you love this. This is right up your alley here.
Yeah. Am I getting an over under? How are we doing this?
How many is he going to get?
Within 10.
10? Within 10? That's a pretty
go
wide
10
window there.
10 over under.
Come on, Ken, what do you got?
If 10s are over under, I'm going to go under, but just because I know how much this opens up for other players. I think, they had 48 sacks as a team last year, top 5 in the league. So they're able to spread it out. They had to when Chandler Jones was injured. And so what's so great about this now for the team is that it doesn't fall on one guy to have that production. It allows them to really just get after the quarterback from across the defense.
Great call, Bob.
Yeah, I'm going to go over, and here's why. Because Kat mentioned it, he's going to be teaming with Chandler Jones. It's the 2 nastiest tandem pass edge rushers in the entire league. If they're both healthy, Chandler's coming off a torn biceps. JJ was healthy all of last year. You put these 2 together, and you're right, Kat. You can't double team both of them, and they're going to have their chances to go cook some quarterbacks. I think Watt's going to have over 10. I think he's going to have 14. But I'm going for it. I think he will. He's that talented.
And he's that much of a game changer, and we'll see how the Cardinals continue to make moves here in the offseason. Stay with AZ Central for reporting from both Bob and Katherine.